Hello? Yeah, good. Can you hear me at the back? Yes?
So people who have lab, assigned lab Monday for next week,
Yep.
do you have to make it up, or is it optional?
No, next week is orientation. No. I will make up the orientation one way or the other because you're in my lab. So the following week, I'll take you aside and I'll tell you what you missed from next week, from the other students. Okay, classes. All right, so I'm going to teach measurements and weights. Let me get myself oriented. And this is a pointer. Okay. I'm going to demonstrate a little bit. It's a little easier for me to teach the whole class at one time. Okay, when we measure any of the dry ingredients, generally speaking, for larger amounts, we use the measuring cup. These are the measuring cups. And the reason I know many of you probably do a lot of cooking at home or elsewhere, you already know this, but you'll be surprised. A number of our students, a lot of our students have never cooked before, so we need to go over this. These are the fractional cups for measuring large amounts. Of half a cup, okay, it's labeled as 1 cup, 3/4 of a cup, half a cup, and 1/4 a cup. They are all labeled. But of course, I took these from home, so in your lab, it's not going to be, let me put this away, it's not going to be red, it's going to be stainless steel or aluminum. So what you do is that if you are measuring sugar and you have to take, it says one cup of sugar, all you have to do is to spoon sugar lightly into this 1 cup, fill a little bit more than necessary, and then use the flat edge, straight edge of a spatula like this, just run it on the top to get exactly 1 cup. And we use measuring spoons. These are measuring spoons. They're already labeled as tablespoon, okay, teaspoon, 1/4, 1/2 teaspoon. It's already labeled as such. So for smaller amounts such as pepper, baking soda, baking powder, it says half a teaspoon or whatever, or one teaspoon, for example. All you have to do is dip it into, but of course for baking powder, baking soda, you ought to fluff it a little bit. You have to shake it a little bit, move it around so that it doesn't get packed. Sometimes when it gets packed, you can't measure easily. And then you do the same thing. Okay. Run the top with the flat edge or the straight edge of a spatula. And this is 1 teaspoon. And for flour, to measure flour, it's a little bit different. We would like you to, whenever it says 1 cup of flour, generally speaking, the author assumes you know how to measure 1 cup of flour. To them, it means you sift it once. What it is, you sift it onto a piece of paper, maybe 12 by 12. Sift it first onto paper, and then you spoon it, okay, transfer into the fractional cup like this. Do not pack. So it's going to pile up a little bit, and then you're going to run the edge again, flat edge or straight edge again, to make sure it's exactly 1 cup. So the reason why we ask you to do that, to sift it first onto a piece of paper, and then to transfer into the fractional cup, is that you don't have to know this, but I gave you this information. If you just use unsifted flour, it's going to be too heavy. it's going to be about 140 grams, too heavy. Yet, if you use a cup of just sifted flour, it's 115 grams, a little too light. Basically, when they say a cup of flour, it's sifted once onto the piece of paper, and then you transfer into this, and then you flatten it is exactly what they want. Because if it's too much flour, if it's too heavy, your cookie is going to end up being too dry and too tough. So any recipe, generally speaking, the recipes are pretty good. They ask you to sift it once, okay, and then you put it into a fractional cup, and that's the way they assume that you know. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes they themselves don't know, then it's their fault. But generally speaking, we do it in the same way, and then you level it, then you get very close to what we want, which is about 120 grams. You got it? So that's the assumption in cookbooks, all right? Now, with granulated sugar, it's easy. You don't have to sift it. All you have to do is, because it's free-flowing, put granulate. It says 1 cup, put it in here, fill it in the cup, and then you level with the edge of the spatula. Very easy. Now, with baking powder or baking soda, as I mentioned before once, you open it. If it says 1 teaspoon, you have to dip into it. You fluff it a little bit inside to incorporate some air, because sometimes there's a tendency to get it caked, okay, inside the can. So you fluff it a little bit, and lightly scoop the fluffed baking powder or baking soda in here, and then you level it, fluff it first. And then to make sure that you have no lumps in them, in that teaspoon of baking soda or baking powder, the best thing is put it into a sift to do it. Because sometimes, I don't know whether you've had cookies. I've had a number of times cookies that I bite into, oh, I get a whole bite of baking soda or baking powder. Because, you see, maybe they didn't fluff it enough. And the best thing is put it through the sifter. You have the sifter anyway to sift the flour. Might as well just put it through the sift once more. The baking powder, why? Because they have the tendency to get clumped. But of course, we're lucky to be in San Francisco. Weather is very dry. But if you live in East Coast, sometimes very wet, humid weather, all this gets caked. And you don't want to get a mouthful of baking powder or baking soda. They would never want your cookies again, thinking it's your methodology that's wrong. In reality, it's this that's wrong. It's caked. So sift it. Or here, you could just fluff it and do that. But still, to put it through a sifter is good enough. It's better, rather. Okay? Any questions thus far? Oh, with brown sugar has a tendency to stick together. So when they stick together here and there, if you want, it says 1 cup of brown sugar. You scoop the brown sugar, just like granulated sugar. You put it in, you level it, you got it. With brown sugar, it's kind of difficult because they stick together. So what do? You have to pack it. Pack the air out. Because when they stick together, there are pockets of air inside. That's why. And then you level. Okay. Wet ingredients. When it says to measure wet ingredients, you have in your own unit, in the Miller Lab, measuring cup. Whether it's Pyrex or whether it's glass. Okay. If it says to measure to 1/4 cup of water, for example, how do you do it? What it is that if it's 1/4, it's all labeled here, 1/4, 1/2, and 1 cup. Let's assume 1 cup. It's a little easier. For example, they said 1 cup of water. Okay, you pour water in here, and of course, you want to make sure that's 1 cup. You have to stoop down a little bit and have your eyes at the same level as the 1 cup. Okay, and you measure the bottom of the meniscus. What is meniscus? Bottom of the meniscus. you see water level, let me sketch it here. If this is a test tube, if they ask you to, if you put water in, you see the water is going to be what? Kind of like this. And it's because of the surface tension, just like water sticks to the glass a little bit. Water, not all oil behaves differently. I'm talking about water. Okay, water sticks to the sides. So the fair way, the best way of measuring is right here at the bottom of this meniscus. So how do you measure the bottom meniscus? You really have to stoop down to see. And if it's the bottom meniscus is higher than 1 cup, you have to pour it out until it goes to 1 cup. All right? And I already explained that to you. Okay. Now this is something that, this chart is something that I would like you to be familiar with. I'm going to give you a quiz I think about 15 questions very fast. And I will announce when I'm going to give it to you. I think I'll be able to give it to you before you start your lab so that you know what these measurements are. These are typical abbreviations that you should know. So I would test you. Very obvious, and I know that you know, most of you probably know all of them already. If not, you should know what they are so that you won't make mistakes. A small t especially, is a small t means teaspoon. A large t is a tablespoon. Okay, and the rest you could just read. I don't want to take time on it, okay? And this is something you ought to know. When it says 1/3 of a tablespoon, then you know that 1/3 of a tablespoon is exactly 1 teaspoon, because 3 teaspoons is equal to 1 tablespoon. Okay, so generally speaking, they will tell you 1 teaspoon, and so if it's flour or if it's baking powder, baking soda, if it says 2 teaspoons, you do 2 teaspoons, right? But if it says 2, you could actually divide 1 tablespoon into 4 parts if you want. 1 part is 1/4, but if it's half of it, it's 1/2 of a tablespoon is actually 1.5 teaspoons. So if you know just this relationship, 3 teaspoons equal to 1 tablespoon, you got it all made. You know how to answer the rest of the questions. You could change from teaspoon to tablespoon, tablespoon to teaspoon, no problems. And I would like you to know 8 tablespoons is equal to 4 fluid ounces. And actually what you need to know really 16 tablespoons is equal to 1 cup. Once you know that, you could convert it in any way you want. And when you go down the line, 1 cup is 16 tablespoons. So it's, or 8 fluid ounces. So 1 fluid ounce will be equivalent to 2 tablespoons, right? Where is it? 1 cup is 16 tablespoons or 8 fluid ounces. So if they say, so 1 fluid ounce is equivalent to 2 tablespoons, right? So once you know this, it's just very easy for you to convert one to another. So you don't have to keep running to your partners, your teachers, but, you know, what should I do? You know, it's not what I have here. So 1 pint, you need to know, 1 pint is equal to 2 cups. So half a pint is what? Half a pint is what? 1 cup. Yeah, and you need to know 1 quart is 2 pints, 1 quart is 4 cups. So anything labeled in bold is what you need to know, and you could convert it in any way you want. All right? I try to make it easy for you. Okay, and this is something that it's always good for you, whether you're taking this class or whether you're just going out on a trip. Okay, we're not on metric system. We go by Fahrenheit. Oh, by the way, sorry, I made a mistake. I have to move it up a little bit. No, see at the bottom, 0 degrees centigrade is equal to 32. Let me see, could I move it up? No, I can't. I'm sorry, I lost the bottom part. Oh, yeah. Okay, 0. Okay, so 0 degrees centigrade is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. But how do you convert from Celsius, or Celsius is the same as centigrade, okay, to Fahrenheit? How do you do that? Because when you go, if you know this, where I lost this. You can't see. How do I get it up? Move it up. It doesn't go. Okay. I could see it here, but you can't see it here. What it is, 0 degrees centigrade, you need to know that for sure. Everybody should know. This you must know. Once you know that going from centigrade going to Fahrenheit is going to be higher, right? So if you're going to be higher, it's going to be plus. The number will be larger. And from Fahrenheit to centigrade or Celsius will be from larger number to smaller number. Okay, so if you know that, then the rest should be a lot easier. If you change from Fahrenheit to, if you want Fahrenheit, if you want Celsius, you want to change from this to this, it's going to get larger. When it gets larger, you put the larger number on the top, 9. Put the smaller number at the bottom, 5. You have to remember this, 9 divided by 5. And then plus. It's not minus because you're going larger. Plus 32 is degrees Fahrenheit, right? And degrees centigrade is equal to the large number. You're going to go smaller, so you have to minus 32 because the difference is 32. Multiply, you're going smaller, so you put the small number up and large number down. But you have to remember 5, 9, and 32. 32 is easy for you to remember because of this. You know that. 32 degrees Fahrenheit is centigrade. So the rest, if you remember 5 and 9, you know which way you're going. If you're going larger, put the 9 up, put the 5 down. Or you could do this. You could divide or multiply 1.8. It's the same. It's just that it's a way of life that I think you should know regardless, but especially in cooking. Sometimes they give it to you in centigrade, sometimes they give it to you in Fahrenheit. So how do you convert? You have to convert it. All right? Any question? So this you have to remember, and it's good for your daily life anyway. Oven temperature, when it says moderate oven, it's about 350 degrees. So it's a bake it in moderate ovens, about 350, no higher than 375. And when it says bake it in a hot oven, generally speaking, it's 400 to 450 or 425, of course, but not lower than that. All right? Okay, proper use of chef's knife, which I would demonstrate. Basically, using a chef knife is proper use of chef knife is very important because you don't want to cut yourself. So choose a knife that you feel comfortable with. And the knife should be sharp. If it's not sharp enough, let us know. We remove it, we have it sharpened, and put it back when it's sharp because you don't want to cut your fingers. Actually, you think the sharp knife is dangerous? No. Actually, a blunt knife is dangerous because that means it's not doing what you want it to do. Okay, so you position your knife properly. We will demonstrate again. You pinch the blade actually right here, and then you wrap your fingers around the handle. And the most important thing is use the claw. This is the claw. When you cut, this is the claw. When you cut, we don't want it to cut your fingers. So we will have you practice the claw to protect your hand. This is what we call the claw. Okay, you tuck your thumb in and then when you cut, you slide your left hand back, but you keep this claw position so that it doesn't cut your fingers or your knuckles or anywhere. Basically, you're keeping your knuckles against the knife, but we will have you practice and put the board, chopping board, on a rubber mat or a damp towel to keep it stable so it doesn't move. Okay, so this is all about weights and measurements. I'm sorry I have to go on for the next topic so that you will be able to do your lab. All right? No. Don't tell me that I lost it. I don't want to have to call them again. I'm not shutting it down. It took me so long to get on. There must have been another way to move to another slide. There. No. Why is that? Oh, is it coming? No input, laptop. Oh, she must think. Does anybody know how to move this before I call them? Anybody's good at that? No? Okay, how do I move? Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. You know, I'm just a minute. Let me turn this off first. I'm
Because I have a microbiology lab during.
Oh, say it again.
I have microbiology lab during Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11:10.
11:10?
Yeah,
I see. Does it come, so you have to have Monday lab?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm in your Monday.
You're in the Monday class.
Yeah, and I went today to you, and you said that we don't have lab.
You look familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have lab this week, and you said next week is going to be.
Yeah. So I will, for Monday's lab class, don't worry about it. I will catch up with you.
Okay,
But if you can go to Tuesday and Thursday, great.
I know, but I have class during that time. I have class during that.
Anyway.
On Tuesdays and
just tell me. Okay. I will just pull you aside and I'll just give you a short order.
Okay, so for next Monday, you said it's Labor Day, so we don't
No
have
class on Labor Day. Yeah.
So, and then
That's why next week is orientation. That's why you miss orientation. I cannot be here. Next week is orientation.
Okay,
This
so
week
I guess
is only add and drop.
So I guess we'll just
We're
figure it
taking
out the
time
week
to
after
get you
then.
acclimated. Huh?
We'll just figure it out the week after then.
No, I will give you when I have lab.
Okay.
I will
I'll
catch up.
email you just like you have it.
I will. Don't worry about it. I know.
Thank you.
I will pull all those students who miss orientation aside. And I'll give you a short
Thank you.
Okay.
So is there a good chance, like, for adding for section 3?
I'm going to tell all the students who are not here. You can just go ahead and drop.
Okay, so all I have to do is just go to lab tomorrow.
You have to send him an email.
I sent you guys an email, like, just right now.
Just right now, but he doesn't know that he's got all the students dropping.
Yeah, so then the only way is to just go tomorrow.
Yeah, go ahead.
Get a good place
I
to
will
be able
send
to
him
do
a
that.
listing today. Okay, great.
So email him and go to the lab.
Just go to the lab. Just tell him to quite a few students. I will tell him which section did you want. I can tell you exactly.
I need section 3 or section 4, which one's the actual one?
Oh, so what is CFS or DFM?
That's a DFM 3.
DFM section 3?
That's the section 13.
Oh, DFM section
3.
CFS section 3, only one drop. CFS section 3, one drop. DFM section 3, 4 drop.
So this is Monday's live?
No, this is Tuesday.
This is Tuesday, right?
Tuesday.
Okay. Yeah, so that's section 3.
Wait, it says, okay, so this is,
This is the lecture.
okay, so Tuesday from, okay, so that's the one.
Yeah. Okay.
That should
And then,
be
this is the largest listing of drop I've seen. The others no drop. This one only one drop. So I think section 3, that means Tuesday. He should have Tuesday's class. I think he should be able to take it if you're not enrolled.
Okay.
And he has a permission slip. He'll give it to you.
Okay, perfect. Great. Thank
I
you.
don't have permission slip because I can't.
Yeah, it's dependent on them,
This
right?
class, yeah.
Do you have any more room in Mondays, or is Tuesday?
Monday, nobody dropped on CFS. I have 2 drop, but I added 3. You could follow up, you could send me an email if more students
I already
dropped
did.
something.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
So the best thing to do is to go
Did
to
you
lab.
send an email before?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
What is your name?
Kara Sullivan.
Oh,
I sent you a couple emails last week.
Last
but-
week?
Yeah.
oh, I took all those who were
Didn't get me
second baccalaureate degree students. That's what they took.
What I am.
That's what I
We both, yeah.
Oh, did you tell me that you said
don't
that?
think
Oh,
I did.
that's why I didn't consider you.
Okay.
Because I was told
So-
to take those first.
You're not giving any ad codes today. We have to go tomorrow to get an ad code.
No, I could give it to you via email
Okay, so I sent
if
you.
you qualify, and I will take those first because that's what I was told.
Okay. So send email rather than.
Send an email to me and tell me second baccalaureate.
Okay.
That's my question. Send you an email and to get an ad code.
To get an ad code, so because I didn't give you an ad code, I know I saw you
Right.
earlier.
Okay, so I'll email you.
Yeah, okay, all right, okay. If everybody fits in, yeah.
See you 2 weeks.
Yeah, see you 2 weeks. We're right.
I came late, but I am a teacher in the class, so I missed it.
Oh. Which,
This class,
this class, I know, but,
math keep itself.
but which section? Because I did something wrong. Remember, according to university policy, if you're not here on the first day, you're supposed to give the seat away.
Yeah, I'm in this class.
I know, but which section?
This is the
Lab.
section. Oh, the 11th Tuesday.
Tuesday, so section 3. What is your name?
Maskey Patel?
You want to come from?
Yes.
No?
Where's that?
I already marked you off. So, okay, this way. Okay, I'm glad you came in beforehand. I was going to tell a minute to give you the seat away. Okay.
Do I need to sign in for this class also, sir?
No, I already took it.
So I'm in section 2 in the Monday class, but I didn't hear my name called. So
Oh,
yeah,
would you check?
CFS.
What's your last name?
Mesa, M-E-Z-A.
M-C-A. M-A-C-A.
M-E-Z-A.
M-E-C-A. No. This section 1?
Yeah, section 1.
No? Are you sure?
Yeah, here is my class schedule.
Oh, section 1? Oh, let's check. I missed one. Okay. This M. No. And this. That's all I have for section 1. Maybe you're in another section.
No, it's right here.
No? CFS?
Mm-hmm.
Lecture? Lecture, yes. But how about lab?
O2.
O2. So you're on Tuesday.